World's Greatest Dad is a 2009 American film written and directed by the comedian Bobcat Goldthwait and stars Robin Williams, Daryl Sabara, and Alexie Gilmore. The plot follows a single dad and high school poetry teacher trying to raise his asshole son while simultaneously being shit on by just about everyone around him. It's a very quirky and satirical take on the good guy that pushes forward and asking for nothing while, being the world's punching bag. I can relate. Now, Bobcat Goldthwait is an interesting guy, always has been. I've never really seen his stand-up comedy, I don't think. I may have back in the 90s when I was a kid, and I watched a lot of stand-up back then. But I don't know. But anyway, I find him to be a really interesting director, even though I still haven't seen all his stuff. I've seen a smattering of his work. I do like his satirical approach, his lack of fear when it comes to compromise and artistic integrity. And I also like how he isn't afraid to traverse genres. And I mean, that's not to say that I think everything that he's done works. I really wanted to like his found footage film from 2013, Willow Creek. It's his found footage Bigfoot film, which on paper should be tailor made for me. But man, it was just oddly similar to the Blair Witch Project, I thought, and it was just really disappointing. So for me, World's Greatest Dad is his best work, from what I've seen. It did benefit from a great cast, especially Robin Williams giving one of his career-defining performances. He's gone now, but obviously not forgotten, and this will always be one of the things that I remember him for. I also don't want to take away from the writing here, because I think it's actually pretty clever, and I think that Bobcat Goldthwait kind of wears his heart on his sleeve in this film. Because it's satirical in the way that almost everyone around Lance is kind of a stereotype, or like a caricature of themselves. Lance is a very grounded dude. He's one of the only grounded characters in the entire film, despite the fact that he's practically being followed around by a dark rain cloud, like in the cartoons. And a ton of us, I think, will be able to relate to him, and I think that's one of the many beauties of this film, and part of what makes it, what it is. It's that he's the everyman, and fucking 95% of us can relate to that, and he's just one of those people that could just somehow magically hold their shit together. I think we've all known people like this, and they always amaze me. On the surface, Lance. He's got a pretty decent life. He's got a good job, a beautiful girlfriend, and a teenage son. Only his position at the school is constantly being threatened by his fucking asshole boss, and his girlfriend acts serious, but is also kind of flaky, and he can't help but feel like it's a little bit one-sided. And then there is his son, Kyle. Oh man, I can't even... If you haven't seen this film, I can't even prepare you for Kyle. I don't have the words. I guarantee you, though, that you have never seen such a piece of shit, especially of a kid. He's like a teenager. And I just, again, I can't even really articulate just how much of an asshole this kid is. And again, if you haven't seen this film, this is not like your typical annoying movie kid. Kyle's intentionally and completely over the top, unlikable. He makes Lance's life hell, to say the least. I don't think even Lance really likes him, but he loves him, and it's his son. And I gotta be honest, I have a son that's kind of like Kyle's age, and I've always been scared that he would grow up to be an asshole. Maybe not as bad as Kyle, but still. But he didn't. That didn't happen. So I'm glad I dodged that bullet. So anyway, it just adds to Lance's overall character. He is loyal to people in his life. Pretty much everyone around him, and most of them really don't deserve it. Actually, none of them do. Lance, though, he is human after all, and fuck, the best of us make mistakes, even when the intentions are good. I have often interpreted Kyle's character in kind of different ways, and honestly, I think that maybe I overthink it at times. Sometimes I think that maybe he is kind of like a reflection of a potential rough childhood. But I'm pretty sure that Goldthwait only really intended for him to be a satirical take on the stereotypical shithead teenager, turned up to the max. And of course, only Lance would have a kid like this, because these are the kinds of cards that he's constantly dealt. Now, I don't want you to think that this next part is a spoiler, because it would seem that way. But if you haven't seen this film, it has to be mentioned. If you are at all familiar with Bobcat Goldthwait's career, he's always been an outspoken dude, and he isn't afraid to tackle, uncomfortable topics or themes. So, anyways, one day Lance finds Kyle dead from autoerotic asphyxiation. I'm assuming I'm allowed to say that here on YouTube. Whatever. And anyways, I'm not trying to downplay this, because this is one of the saddest scenes I have seen in any film, and also a career high performance from Robin Williams in a film that already has his career high performance. So it's his best performance among one of his best roles. And every time I see it, I just kind of crumble. It's a tough scene. But I mean, you're only sad for Lance, because you don't miss Kyle. You just don't at all. Like, it's also the biggest plot point of the film, because this really is where the true story begins. Because Lance wants to at least do his best to honor Kyle's name, so he decides to write a fake suicide note with like a backstory as to why he decided to take his own life. Because that's far less humiliating than what actually happened. That's how Lance feels. But here's the thing: Lance is also a writer. I mean, he says earlier in the film he's finished 5 books, but I mean, none of them were ever published, because of course they weren't. But that said, he's a smart guy and he knows how to write a story. So he figures, why not just make Kyle like this misunderstood hero? Well, it ends up, the suicide note ends up getting published in the school newspaper, and it blows up, and the kids are really into it. And this is the first time Lance has ever written anything that anyone was actually into, or that was published in any way at all. So when a student asks him if she can read more of Kyle's writing, Lance writes more stuff under Kyle's name, getting caught up in the feeling of being kind of like a minor celebrity. But it's also the first time in probably a long time that Lance has felt wanted. Even if he is bothered by, suddenly people are acting like they cared about Kyle. So I'm giving World's Greatest Dad an 8 out of 10. It's a pretty deep film. It really is. Disguised as a dark comedy. And it may be a bit edgy or controversial for some people, and I get that. At the end of the day, it is unfiltered and uncompromising art, and a reminder that hitting rock bottom can sometimes mean rebirth. Life is weird, man, and it's hard as fuck. And it will consistently try to just bring you down, but please don't think that a low point means that it's the end. Sometimes it's a new beginning. Cheers, guys. I'll see you at the multiplex.